might want to change the name.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay,
Oh, did you? Okay.
Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there.
This is Luca Perich, host of a Totally Turtle sports and gaming YouTube channel, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Jed McKay, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics Podcast.
All right, kids. I thought this episode was going to be really different this week. It's going to be really, really different. All right, because yes, me and the boys here, because again, no Lilith and Charlie, but I got Will, I got Justin, and I, of course, got Ray.
Hello.
Everyone's favorite Ray. Yes, we're going to be talking, well, hopefully, we were supposed to talk to Jeff Johnson, the artist. I don't know what happened. Hope he's all right, but we're going to sit here for a while and talk some news, some comics, and if he shows up, fine. If not, we're just going to get four old men reminiscing about comics.
Get off my lawn.
Things cost more than they used to.
I hope you like that Wonder Man's 2-part special because you're going to be into more of that, but less focused.
That's right.
All right. So, speaking of, I know we said first thing, do we want to talk the Wonder Man casting?
Yeah.
That sounds
how
good.
do we feel about the Wonder Man casting?
I mean, the guy's a great actor. I mean, the stuff I've seen him in, he's great. But like Will said, probably certain segments of the population are going to probably complain because he's not a white man.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this is
But-
this is
Who cares if he's white as long as he has a mullet?
Abdul Mateen II.
You went there, Phil. You went with a mullet
Yes.
already. Come on,
The
man.
mullet is key. Yes.
That would be an interesting project. Go from Avengers 9 as Wonder Man's first appearance to like today and like count up how many different hairstyles Wonder Man's had.
Yeah. Definitely. In costumes.
Although a lot of
too.
characters you probably do that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic actor. He's really going to knock that out of the
yeah.
park. Absolutely.
and he scores high on the biscuit
Yeah.
meter, huh, Justin?
Oh, yes. Absolutely, he does. I have no reason to complain at all about that casting.
Yeah. I really.
So what kind of angle are we?
Oh, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I just So what? How do you think he's going to be depicted, like in the TV show?
That's
I mean, obviously
something
there'll be differences.
that's something that concerns me. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope they don't play him as just this, hey, I'm really good looking, but I'm a complete airhead, because he's an engineer. He ran a company as an engineer. He's a smart dude, and we saw some of that in the series, which we talked about months ago. But I hope that they don't just, he's the guy that just wants to be a superhero, Hollywood superhero or something. I hope there's more to it than that.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to do that Avengers origin where it's like, he gets the power, how's he going to get his powers? And if so, is he going to like lapse into a coma or something and come out of it like in the comics or?
I mean, even also one of the, I think, more interesting aspects from the Jeff Johnson and Gerard Jones run was that kind of existential crisis he had, which they can't do it unless they somehow shoehorn it into, something similar to the whole Vision using the brainwaves,
Right.
and falling in love with Scarlet Witch. I mean, that's a really big stretch, I think. But I mean, there's still plenty of stuff to make Simon Williams, I think, interesting, and hopefully, like you said, Will, not just like an airhead. I mean, that would be the go-to, like that would be the obvious thing. But I'm hoping they bring a lot more to it than that.
Well,
I hope so too. Yeah.
There's so much that they can do because, when he was revived in Avengers 150, after he was no longer a zombie, whatever, we'll overlook that, where he was actually an airhead, right? But, he was deathly afraid of dying. I mean, he was just petrified of it, and that
Yep.
colored his characterization for years. After he was brought back, and then to find out, in the series, the Wonder Man series itself, that he was essentially immortal.
Mm.
Was kind of an interesting payoff to that, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I think
even going. Sorry, Justin.
Oh no, go ahead, Ray.
Oh no, please.
Well, what I think would be interesting is if they incorporated his origins with being the inventor, with being the scientist aspect, and have him uh, uh, have some type of incurable disease, and he starts working with the ionic radiation stuff as a cure, and it's
Yeah.
like an accidental overexposure, and then he slips into a coma and gets his powers that way. I thought that would be kind of interesting, but
Hmm.
how then I thought, well, how are they going to work the aspiring actor angle into that? Because we also know that they're going to reincorporate the character of Trevor Slattery from the other films
Oh yeah.
into this.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
yeah, I wonder how they're going to make that transition from like inventor, scientist to actor, superhero.
I mean,
Will be
there's
interesting.
there's also again from the comics like a semi rivalry with Iron Man, which you can't, I guess, you can't duplicate now. But maybe he does have some sort of rivalry with someone else. Yeah, I think is the showrunner or the director, isn't it Daniel Cretton or something from Shang-Chi, the director of Shang-Chi? I think
Oh, yeah,
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
he's connected. So it'd be interesting. I mean, he's not your out and out comedy, kind of director. I'm assuming more action based, but from the looks of it, I don't know. It does seem like it's a bit more of a light-hearted take on Wonder Man, but I mean, we really can't tell.
But I think they're really going to steer into the Hollywood skid because I believe it was the beginning of this month. They said, I don't know if it's confirmed or final, but like supposedly they want Bob Odenkirk for a role.
Oh yes,
that's
I
right.
read
Better
that.
Call Saul. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
he's probably playing Neil the agent,
The
Oh.
agent, yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
get him in a
great.
ponytail. Yeah,
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get one of the the best relationships that Wonder Man has in the series because we don't have a Hank McCoy. We don't have the
yes,
Beast.
that's right.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
unfortunate.
unless we start bringing some X-Men in.
Yeah.
There's still time to do it. There's still time
Yeah.
to do it. They could establish that relationship in the years to come. Let's just hope
Yes.
they
I
don't
mean,
wait
they're-
too
they're-
long.
Unless that's how you start introducing the X-Men, because Beast is like one of the original X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we know that they
I mean,
kind of
it's-
have
it's-
plans to do something like that soon, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, Deadpool 3, I've been reading,
Yeah.
is looking to cross over, do a multiversal thing with, I guess, the Fox X-Men and all that. Kelsey Grammer.
It's probably gonna be like their
Places.
version of No Way Home or something.
Yeah, yeah. But Kelsey Grammer was all for it. He responded,
Oh yeah, Kelsey Grammer
That's
wants to
right.
be the Beast again in the
He
world.
wants to do it again. Yeah.
If I don't get it, I won't go to Disneyland ever again. He's like kind of threatening. So, I'd love to see him back. He was my favorite Beast. Him and Nicholas Holt. I much preferred Kelsey.
Oh, yeah.
Kelsey's.
Yeah, I thought he was
kinda-
good too. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a shame. We won't get Simon Williams and Hank again. Will they pair Simon with someone else, like as a bit of a bromance?
Yeah, it's like are they
existing
gonna
in the
pair him
Marvel?
with any Avengers? Because it's like, do we have an Avengers team right now in the MCU? It's
Yeah, true.
Not really. Yeah.
That's how I'm
There's a
thinking.
lot of-
Is this going to be more like a solo thing, or are we going to get guest stars like She-Hulk had? Or
Will we
Well,
get Shang-Chi? I mean, we'll
Yeah, I think
directly
that
bring in.
they're introducing all these new characters so we can have a new Avengers, with She-Hulk and Wonder Man and the new Captain America and all that.
I just
So-
wondered if we were going to get an Avengers, or if they were just going to go straight the Young Avengers. Because I mean, just
Oh, well, they'll
Oh,
probably
yeah,
do
it
that
looks Very
too.
much like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we got Kate Bishop, we got
Mhm. Cassie.
Cassie Lang.
Cassie Lang.
I mean,
yeah.
Scarlet Witch's children are probably out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
could get an even get a young Vision because technically are there two of them now or just one? I don't
Oh,
remember.
There's
He's actually-
there's the other
he's getting his
Vision
own-
wandering around
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Mhm.
And he's getting a series as well. So
Oh, he is okay.
Well, apparently, I can't remember. Phil, do you know if it's a rumor or not, or did they announce that? I can't
I
remember.
don't know if they ever made an official announcement on
Okay.
that.
Okay. Well, maybe in talks to
I wanted to mention something from Black Panther, but I'm sure Will probably didn't see it yet.
I haven't seen it
I
yet.
haven't seen it yet either.
Here,
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
you
plug
haven't,
my
Jay?
The
I'll
end
plug my
credit
ears.
scene.
There
The
you
end
go.
credit scene.
Oh, yes.
Maybe
Yeah,
another Young Avenger.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Oh
definitely.
no, no.
I
can
mean, it
totally-
might be a while for that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Just the end credit scene thing. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
agree,
Well,
yeah.
You know,
But-
another really important relationship that they can probably go ahead and still establish is, the Grim Reaper, his brother.
Yes.
That doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to depend on the Avengers. That
Oh,
can
no.
just be a villain-ish person out there. But that's, I mean, I feel like there's so many interesting aspects of Wonder Man that have gone in over the years to make, him the character that we got in the Wonder Man series. That it's kind of like Jenga. Well, what can we take out because we don't have this in the MCU? Can we take this out because we don't have it in the MCU? And when does it fall down? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, just what was I gonna say? Oh, are we gonna remember where to get his powers from? Baron Zemo. Are we gonna get Zemo in this? We have a Zemo.
That's a good point. We do have
that too.
Mhm.
That would be good if we do. I mean, because that would be at least a nice little nod, albeit to some of the
past.
changes. It would be nice to have that kind of consistency with the
Yeah.
comics. And we haven't seen Zemo enough. I mean,
No, we haven't.
he's great. We need more dancing Baron Zemo.
And he finally got the mask. I mean, come on. He just
Yeah.
gets the mask and then disappears. No, we
Yeah.
need more Zemo.
Well, we did have the Executioner in Ragnarok,
Supposedly
but
he's dead, but yeah.
I don't think we've ever got an Enchantress, have we? In the MCU?
No. What?
Hollywood
No,
would
there
not
was,
be interested in hot blondes. Will, what are you talking about?
wasn't there kind of like some sort of her character kind of meshed in with I can't remember her name from Loki. Like that's a Loki variant, but her look was very yeah.
The look was
I don't know.
similar, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought
But
about
maybe it was
that.
just
Yeah,
look.
but if it wasn't named the character, I mean, they could always bring an Enchantress in. But
Oh, definitely.
I wonder how much. I wonder how much more Asgardian we're gonna do. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
Well, they've got to do at least one more. We've got to see Herc. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm waiting for that. I don't care about Russell Crowe.
Don't forget about these characters. I mean, are we gonna get the major ones like Gamma Burn?
Oh, yes. Gamma burn.
Gamma burn,
Searching for the
love it.
cure for PMS with gamma radiation.
Oh, Splice.
Splice and Rampage and the Recession Raiders.
Hey, that's actually pretty topical right now, right?
It is. We could totally do a Recession Raiders right now.
Ankle as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, he had his own book, so I mean, he had his own supporting cast. We could have Alex, Ginger, Spider.
The Crazy Eights.
Yeah.
Crazy Eight would be great. In a perfect world, if Wonder Man is paid attention to in the MCU, they could really just flesh all this out, and it'd be great to see them.
Yeah, I hope it's a success. I hope people really love this show, and he becomes a popular character that he's meant to be, because that would make me so happy.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just it's weird though that Disney Plus TV shows. I guess there's just no guarantee. Like, it was Miss Marvel got a season 2, but they almost look like they're like elongated, just feature films spread out over episodes, and that's it. And we're not going to get any more. So I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right. In a few moments, we may have Jeff Johnson. So yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Okay.
So, okay. Got back to it, so.
That's some of the problems I have with some of the Marvel shows is, and not all of them, but if you're doing an episode, it's episodic. That episode has to have rules, storytelling rules and structure that you need to follow so that you give someone a slice of whatever it is, a complete slice,
right?
And still have ongoing stuff. I mean, it's it's like a period. It's like comics, right? You need to give them enough of a story, a full bite there, but then you can continue it on. And I really feel like, like Phil said, they treat some of those series like, oh, this is just a 6-hour movie, so we'll cut it here and here
Oh
and
yeah,
there
yeah,
and do that
absolutely.
instead of building it and structuring it like it needs to be structured.
Yeah, some of
Yeah.
She-Hulk felt like that. Like they just
Yes,
took
I
a
was about to
hatchet
say.
to
All
a
right, guys,
hatchet to
I
a
think we
couple of
got
places.
Oh,
All right.
not that I don't love you guys, but all right. Here's what everyone's here for. Mr. Jeff Johnson.
Hi,
Hello,
Jeff.
sir.
Hey
Hello.
guys, I'm so sorry
Hey,
about
Jeff.
that. I wrote
That's
it down
all
as
right.
8, but did not write down Eastern. Oh,
No worries.
All that. All right. So
My
get your
bad.
questions out, boys. All right.
All right, let me fix my angle and whatnot. I'm really terribly sorry. Yeah, this
Oh, that's
just
all
goes to
right.
show you
That's
what
okay.
happens when you're on deadline and don't sleep much.
Oh gosh. That's not
Sleep.
good.
What's that?
Yes, exactly. All right,
Yeah, so I mean,
let
we were
me-
just talking prior, just with the new casting. I guess the announcement of Wonder Man. I know that you're very excited as well, Jeff. The TV
Oh, yeah.
show, and just like just the way that the MCU has been established thus far. I guess how they can angle Wonder Man in, considering the history he's had in the comics. So, for instance, his bromance with Hank McCoy, and we don't have a Hank McCoy in the MCU, that sort of stuff. I'm just interested to know your take on that.
Well, I mean, I don't. I think that he can fit in pretty easily. They're going to have to do something about his origin since they've changed the Vision, right?
Right.
They don't really have the X-Men in the MCU, so one of my favorite relationships of his with Hank is going to have to be different, or they're going to have to develop it at some point. I don't know what their plans are for the show, but I do think that since they've already got the She-Hulk in LA, that all they really need to do is and they've already introduced the Ben Kingsley character. So it could easily be an origin story where they give him his power, or they can just introduce him as an actor and then reveal that he has powers. I mean, but I really have no idea. I'm excited because I love the character. But one of the things I love about the character are his sort of like his ties to the Avengers and his ties to the X-Men, and he's sort of a lovable, train wreck. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they play that in a comedy. I mean, he does have a good sense of humor, and I do think his situations can be funny. And we played him for comedy in our book, and I know that sometimes I think that his life itself can be a little ridiculous. But honestly, guys, I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea. He's got such a long history as a character. And he's had so many incarnations. I think they could really kind of pick anything, right? It just depends on it depends on if they want to play him as a villain first, or they want to jump straight to being hero. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm sorry I missed the first hour of the conversation.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we waited a while. We just jumped in not too long ago. We've been throwing the theories back and forth. Like I was even saying, there's rumors they're looking at Bob Odenkirk for a role. So I was like,
he's amazing.
He has to be Neil, his agent, right?
Right.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, if they do play that, I think that if they decide to give him, I mean, Zemo's already in the universe, so I mean, they could easily tie him into Zemo and maybe even Hydra and some sort of experiments. But honestly, he's got such a huge power. He's so strong, and he's got such an interesting power that they could play him almost as kind of like Marvel's Superman, depending on where they want to introduce him. So he could be a hero. He could be tragic. That's the thing. He's been all those kinds of characters before.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about one of the things that kind of defined him once he was brought back was his fear of death.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really, I think, played off in your run really great because suddenly he's immortal. Which is a really cool way to go about it.
such an interesting aspect, for Wonder Man. And albeit it would be harder for that to be played into the MCU portrayal. But yeah, I mean, just sticking with that point, I'd love that part of the Wonder Man series about him questioning, about him actually, am I really me? Like, I'm really just ionic energy.
Right.
Am I really the real Simon Williams? I thought that was a really interesting thing to focus in on in that series.
Well, one of the things that I always thought, hang on a second, one of the things I always thought interesting was, you guys ever hear the Viking ship analogy? Like if you replace one piece.
Yeah.
So I always thought that he struggled with that idea too, especially since he's died and come back so many times. The idea of how much of whatever he is survived. And then I know that after my run that he was killed, and then he's been brought back several times. Is he sort of a pacifist at the moment? Is that still happening?
Oh gosh,
I'm not sure.
Yes,
He
yeah,
was for a
last
while.
time-
Yeah, I'm not
last
sure
story
that
was,
there,
yeah.
because wasn't that like the Bendis run? But yeah, I'm not
That
sure.
was a no surrender, Avengers or no. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't know where he is now, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I always thought. I mean, when I was a kid and I started reading him, I always thought he was great, and I loved his relationship with Hank. Some of my favorite Avengers are the ones drawn by Gene Colan, and the Safari outfit's one of my all-time favorites. I love the idea of a hero and someone as strong as Thor who had doubts, right? It just made sense that no matter, as a kid, right, you're like, oh, what would you do with all this power? But then if you don't even know who you are, like, how do you decide? And I always thought him trying to figure out who he was as a person and who he would be as a hero was an interesting conversation. But I don't really think any other character in the Marvel universe doubts themselves in the same way that he does.
That's right. And if I remember right, you really kind of redesigned his look, because there was a time he was wearing that Christmas tree green outfit. I think that was
I think that what the George Perez one. Yeah, I mean, I do have a soft spot in my heart for that costume. I just think it's a pain in the ass to draw, but it does. I think it does look cool. Well, I mean, I took sort of. He was already wearing the black tank top, and he was mostly all black. With the Bob Hall and the John Byrne run on the West Coast Avengers, and I just sort of modified that a little bit. I changed his hair so that when he whipped around, it gave him a little indication of motion. And it was the 90s, so it's.
You should have kept the mullet, Jeff.
that haircut, yeah, and I couldn't handle the mullet. That was the 80s. So I updated him a little bit, and I gave him weightlifting gloves just because. I thought those looked a little bit cooler. They had the same feel as the gauntlet, but was a little bit updated. But other than that, I tried to keep him pretty much in that. I think I've always liked that costume the best. It's the most simple, and I think it's the most bold on the page. And I think that does look especially at smaller shots where he just the W reads, I think. But I mean, his original costume where it's the WM and it's the infinity symbol that goes all around his middle. That's a fun one too. But man, that symbol is really hard to draw. Like it's hard to get in the flow of it.
I'm just wondering also as well, Jeff, was there any collaboration again with that run? For Wonder Man to drop the jetpacks and then to have him like leaping through. Because for me, costume wise, one of the recognizable things for me was the jetpacks. But I found it very interesting how he did the leaping, which was another different thing for him.
Yeah, I think so that was, I can't remember if that was my idea or maybe Fabian's. It was like that we wanted to play with his powers. And so one of the things we wanted to do with the powers was have him be able to explore the limits of those powers, and we started by taking away flight so that he would have to, because that just seemed like the jetpacks are cool, but they were an accessory, that gave him some control over his ionic power, and we wanted him to explore the powers on his own. So we took those away so that he would jump, and also in LA that gave it. I thought that made it more interesting as he jumped from place to place. So he was closer to the ground. So we had more of Los Angeles and we can get more of the feel of the topography in a way. because too high, Los Angeles sort of bleeds out and just becomes this morass of like just squares on the ground. There's not really a lot of depth to it the same way there is in New York. So that was one of the solutions we came up with. And then eventually he was going to learn how to fly and shoot beams and change his shape and power up and do all those things. But I guess he died before we really got that far.
Unfortunately.
But, that's fair though, because in hindsight, one of the things that makes a Superman character difficult to write and draw sometimes is they're just too powerful, right? The storylines become really disenfranchised from anything that a regular person can get their head around. So I think we were kind of going in the wrong direction, making him too powerful. Oh, I mean, what are you gonna do? It's
well, you kind of had that storyline. Was it that? Yeah, it was after Galactic Storm, where like his powers would go up and down. You know, the level. Sometimes he'd be weak. He'd have to get angry, almost like the Hulk.
Right. Yeah, his powers were connected to his emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, and in like our private chats when we were talking about setting this up, didn't you say like was it more your idea like to go darker with that stuff?
Yeah, well, I definitely think that there was, I mean, I always liked the humor side of him, but especially setting him in Los Angeles and having him be an actor, the idea of pretending who he is and wanting to be something other than himself. And then I've studied martial arts since I was a kid, and I also was asking all the very Zen questions of like, are you a man or a butterfly dreaming he's a man? That kind of, self-indulgent bullshit that you do when you're in your 20s and you're studying philosophy. You bring that nonsense to the table. But I thought it worked. I think that the push to have him be more campy and silly, and then the push to have him also be more morose and serious, I thought made for a really interesting combination of a book, especially when we were having him fight. When we would have him fight in LA and then have the Crazy Eight, and they would have their more fun, silly adventures, and then it was sort of a natural byproduct of then also having him wrapped up in these gigantic crossovers where they were really serious and Thanos and Galactus and all that stuff were involved. So it just it just kind of all worked out.
You had a couple of really big crossovers.
We did.
Operation Galactic Storm and Infinity War.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that kind of daunting to like all of a sudden you're in the middle of trying to tell this narrative and then you've got, oh no, we've got a big event. You've got to derail that and focus on this story.
I think that was at the time it was frustrating because we had plans for the character and his supporting cast and all that Earthbound stuff, but and so being derailed was annoying. However, I did get to draw every superhero and I got to draw space stuff, and so for me it was actually kind of great. I was just looking at those pages. I watched your show on him the last time, and that's one of the reasons I called you guys, is because I thought like this show, you guys really did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks.
But also I had not thought about. I mean, and also with his upcoming show, I've been kind of digging through old pages and old photocopies and stuff, and I found a bunch of the photocopies of that Infinity Gauntlet stuff. I got to draw every character, and then I also got to draw evil versions of a lot of those characters.
That must have been so much fun.
It was great. I have to say that I love drawing comics anyway, and I've done a lot of comics over the last couple of decades, but the 90s were there. There was just something fun about the comics we were doing then. They weren't as maudlin, right?
Yeah.
People talk about it as they're being more realistic now, but I liked the unrealistic battles in space.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The fun definitely came across too. It definitely came across in the 90s. Yeah.
I think it really was handled well, like with those big Operation Galactic Storm and Infinity War. You Wonder Man kind of dipped his toe in that, but it wasn't I guess the through line wasn't sidetracked too much.
Yeah,
It
like
was,
you
I
use,
just
you
recall.
use the narrative to keep
Right.
your narrative
Yeah.
going, because yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes in those
Mm.
crossovers that you just lose your
Yeah,
original plot
exactly.
entirely.
It
Yeah.
is easy,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think thank you. I think one of the things that we were able to do is because his core. I mean, it's still his core idea is like, what am I? And I think like,
Mhm.
what am I doing? What is life about? Especially if I keep coming back, right? Like,
Right.
this idea, like I know that his fear of death has sometimes been crippling, and then other times I would play as like just his anger at death was almost a
Mhm.
motivating force for
Mm.
him.
Mhm.
I know that during like in Guardians of the Galaxy in the future, he's actually Hollywood.
Right.
So that was
Yeah.
happening at the same time our story was happening. So or even a little before ours. So I like in my mind, I knew that no matter what happens, he's never really in danger since he's alive 1,000 years from now.
Right.
Um, and it was kind of fun playing, like being the guy playing that, like, oh, even though he's scared now, I know everything's going to be okay. Which
Mhm.
I don't know if that subconsciously changed the way I would draw things, but I think it probably did.
Well, I think you did something really interesting too. The way his powers would fluctuate. His eyes. You
Mhm.
could see. Sorry, he doesn't really have eyes, but he
Right.
has energy coming out of his eyes, right?
Right.
And you would get that. That would help. That would help him, the character act. Basically, I thought that was a really nice touch.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it took a I don't know if you guys were if you look at the earlier issues, it definitely took me a while to figure out how to cartoon the eye shapes a little bit. Since
Oh.
since you don't have the pupils to play with, I had to
Mm.
exaggerate, some of the expressions and all. He did a lot of eyebrow acting back in the day. And when I wanted to show that he was losing it, I would have the energy spill out of his eyes and flash.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
Yeah.
sort of like I could show like this is like things are going over the edge now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was definitely I think towards the latter part of the run as well, when he kind of goes full on I guess emotionless. The color plays a big part in it. A lot of the blue lighting on him kind of just
Oh,
makes
yeah.
him kind of look a lot colder.
Well,
as
Joe
well.
Rosas was great. He was great on that book.
Mm.
I think he was doing the X-Men before that, or might have been doing the X-Men at the same time that he was doing that. But yeah, his colors were he's just great, made great choices.
Mhm.
Oh,
Well,
is
I've got a
there
quick.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
Oh no, just a quick one as well. Just Jeff, it's a big question, but out of if we're sticking to Wonder Man, like the 29 odd issues, is there a particular splash page or a panel that is your favorite? Like that you really like?
It's the only one I have left. It's the one, I think it's issue 24 maybe, where he's growing his thumb, like he's actually is able
yeah.
right, where he's finally able. I always think of that as the moment where he gets control over himself. He realizes that since he is walking around energy, and that his self image was reflected by his physical image, where he was weak, I got skinny, where he was strong and angry, he got bigger, and I had him shrink in mass. I think that all finally comes together for him, and he's able to make the small change of his thumb. And then later on in that issue, I think he grows to fight Goliath. That's
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
think
if that's
yeah.
the same issue, right?
I think so, yeah.
So I think that's really where he makes that transformative connection, where like, oh, I am energy, but I am also what I think I am. The cognito ergo sum concept finally, I think, became controllable for him, which to me was the whole point of what we were trying to do. Like that from that point on, then he could, my goal, and I had lots of dreams, but he would be able to change shape. Like he would be able to fly. He would be able to shoot energy beams, and it would able to. He would be like I did like as an actor, like he would actually be able to change his face, and he would be able to do different. Like he wouldn't have to gain 10 pounds or 20 pounds to play an old,
cool.
an old fisherman. He could just change his shape. So
I love that.
yeah. But that was a concept that we never really got around to.
So I've been doing some research, and two things actually. One, is Wonder Man your first work? Because I can't find much earlier work than that. And the
No.
second,
Yeah.
the second thing is, just to kind of piggyback on what Ray said,
Mhm.
I had that poster from #1 up on my wall because I just thought
I
it was the
love that
coolest
poster.
thing
Yes.
ever.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Well, I mean,
love
so
that.
my career has been pretty much just a ridiculous dream come true. So I got out of the Army, and then I was doing samples and stuff. And so I was sending stuff to Marvel, and I was going to shows. And I wound up meeting Fabian at a comic book con in California. And then he and I became friends, and he would send me scripts, and he would give me advice, and I would send him my pages, and we worked on them for a couple of years. And then I did an issue of Star Wars 3D for Blackthorn, I think was the name of the company. And then I did an issue of Cull 3D for that same company. And I don't think I ever got paid for either one of those.
Really?
Because when you're trying to get exposure and you're trying to get experience and all that other stuff. And then Fabian called me one day and asked if I would do a couple of pages as a backup in Stalkers, the last issue of Stalkers. I think that might have been issue 10. And then I did an okay enough job on that when he got, because Wonder Man was one of the books he got when he first became an editor. And so he gave me a call after I did the Stalkers thing with him, and he asked me if I wanted to try out for Wonder Man. And then I did, and he liked what I did. So my first real work is Wonder Man.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Phil and I do a Green Lantern podcast, and we were always happy to see you show up in Green Lantern. When Darryl Banks was on the book, we had you doing fill-in issues, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm pretty sure that most of us probably followed you over to the Ultraverse, which I think came pretty soon after that, right? With Solitaire.
Yeah. I did Solitaire the Ultraverse. Yeah. I did a few issues over there. It's being a comic artist is fun, but it's also super strange because you want to get on a gig where you get to be on it for a long time. That's the dream. But then once that happens, then you're in a monthly grind, which is exhausting. And so so after Wonder Man, I went on to Solitaire, and I was doing a monthly grind in Solitaire again. I thought, I can't do this. I can't take it. And so left Solitaire and sort of just bounced around. I love doing fill-ins of Green Lantern because it was perfect, right? Because it was a fun, like Ron Mars is an amazing writer, and he's fun to work with. And I love that character too. And like that schedule was perfect for me. Every couple of months doing an issue, and and being able to really concentrate on making it as good as possible. That's the best. Solitaire, Malibu was a lot of fun too. That was a really interesting time in comics.
Yeah, so many universes launched, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone's trying to grab to recreate the Stan Lee phenomenon. CrossGen was the same thing. They were really trying to recreate, an entire mythos, and that worked for a while. But it's a difficult thing to keep going.
Well, and you worked with Ron Mars. Was it Way of the Rat? Was that Ron Mars?
Chuck Dixon. Way of the Rat.
Chuck Dixon. That's right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, nice. And
go ahead, Ray.
Sorry, yeah. Will also mentioned before we kind of went on air. We were looking up. Will was, tracking down all your work. He mentioned you had a couple of stints at Valiant as well, because I'm a big Valiant comics fan, and Solar, the Man of the Atom. That would,
I did. I did. I was the king of doing the last issue of a book for a while. That was if I was on the book, you pretty much knew that book was done. Solar.
Get Jeff in. Come on, this is the last issue.
Like we got one issue left. All right, let him do it.
All Grim Reapers.
Right, exactly. So I did it. Yeah, I did an issue of Solar. I did, I think, an issue of Exo Manowar. And at that time when when Valiant had been bought, I was actually supposed to do a complete relaunch of Magnus Robot Fighter.
Ooh.
With Keith Giffen. He was going to write it, and I was going to
Oh
draw it.
man.
Yeah, it would have been awesome, but then the company went under.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yikes. Oh.
Yeah, I have been the kiss of death on a couple of books. I didn't do the last issue of Legion of Superheroes, but I did. I think the penultimate issue of the Legion of Superheroes, the one about, I guess, 10 years ago.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and then I was looking through credits too, and it looks like we kind of lost track of you. Is that when you kind of jumped over to animation for a while? Is that right?
Yeah, I after CrossGen, I came back, and CrossGen was a really great experience. Like, I got to be the penciler, but I also got to be part of the writing team. Chuck was a great collaborator, and he's an amazing writer. But we were doing the stuff that I really love, which is like the Kung Fu movie, all that Jackie Chan comedy action stuff. And then after CrossGen, I did a couple of issues of what was it? Weapon X. I did a couple of issues of Weapon X, and then I was doing a creator-owned thing at Dark Horse. And then when the opportunity presented itself, Dave Johnson was working on Justice League Unlimited as a background artist, and he had just gotten the gig to do the designs for Ben 10. And he was moving over and doing that. And so there was a position open for a background artist. And then I tried out for it and got it. And they didn't even need to change the name on the door. So I just moved into that job. And then I was in animation. And I loved it.
Wow.
Animation's a lot of a lot of fun. I was a background artist, and I did character designs and storyboards, and been doing that for a long time. And so now I kind of bounce between both comics and animation when I get the time.
Right.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, what would you say is the biggest difference between like working in those two industries, like the two, I guess creatively, but also workload wise as well?
So I think it's a really interesting question, because it's they're very similar languages. I would say that the Romance base is the same. Like Latin is if there's the root language of both comics and animation. I think one is French and one is Spanish. There's just they're similar, but they don't really cross over as much. In comics, you are creating the illusion of time passing in between panels. The gutters, move you from moment to moment, and mentally, I mean, a good story is that you will create the image that's in between those panels for someone to imagine. And the idea is that you can put those images in someone's head, and that two people will imagine the same in between panels. That's the magic of comics. I think that's the spell that's cast in the gutters. But when you're doing animation, when you're doing storyboards, the time frame is set. It's 24 frames a second. And so you're dealing, instead of the illusion of time, you're actually dealing with time, which means that you have to you change the way you do storytelling, and you change the way you do shots. And I think the workload is about the same, hours per day. When you're drawing a comic, if you're doing a monthly schedule, which I hardly ever did, if you're doing a monthly schedule, then you're working your 8 or 9, 10 hours a day, and you're drawing 6 to 7 panels, and you're making them perfect. And if you are doing a storyboard, you're still working that same amount of hours per day, but you're then doing like 60 panels. So it's just it depends on the gig and what's happening and what kind of show you're doing. I mostly did I've worked on Spider-Man and the Avengers and Transformers. I did a lot of the Batman DVDs and Young Justice. So it's still all comic book stuff. But the biggest difference, I think, is that animation pays on a regular basis, and you get insurance and retirement, and the best thing about working in animation is that you have an IT guy. So if something goes wrong with the program, you just call somebody. As opposed to when you're in comics, you have to figure that stuff out on your own.
In animation, do you have like a bigger team to work with? Like, I mean, on comics, you just have you're communicating with your writer, but you have like your inker, your colorist. Is animation? Do you have more people?
Absolutely. So a comic book team is just the writer, the penciler, the inker, the colorist, and the letterer. I mean, that's pretty much all there is. And sometimes the editor is pretty hands-on. Like Fabian was very hands-on in our book on Wonder Man. As you know, he's also an amazing writer and has always been a great writer. So it was really good to have his input on the book. But yeah, that's a pretty small group of people. And when you do animation, like you're just like say on a show like Transformers, there's a director and there's 3 storyboard artists, and then there's a background designer who may have a team. There's a character designer who may have a team. And then there's an editor for that. I mean, it's a huge operation, because especially if you consider how many people actually draw the stuff by hand later on overseas, it's 100 people easy. So yeah, it's a way different. You're just and also your name scrolls by super fast. So that's how much individuality matters in that system. Yeah, you're definitely you're a cog in the machine for sure.
Well, I mean, but your style is so clean, and I mean, I would think that animation would fit really well for you because your art is so clean. I mean, and that just seems like a really natural fit.
Well, I think it was, and I do think that that was one of the things that did make that transition a bit easier than I think other guys have, because I don't do a lot of line work and I don't delineate shapes that way. And for me, the flow has always been one of the most important things that I was trying to get, that movement between action and action. So one of the things I do a lot in storyboards is I've done a ton of action stuff, like a lot of fight scene stuff. I will wind up being handed, which is a joy. I love choreographing that stuff. There's a scene in Harley Quinn where the Catwoman goes through a museum avoiding traps and stealing jewels that I did, which was one of my all-time favorite scenes, because I got to draw her bouncing around and doing all kinds of acrobatic stuff in this weird museum with like submarines and other kinds of it was
Nice.
yeah. Also, animation is really fun too, because I've gotten to draw things in animation that I would never get to draw in comics, like classic moments. When I worked on the Avengers, I got to draw Black Panther fighting the White Ape as a story, as a little fight scene. And that same show, I got to draw the scene where, like, it was a flashback, but I got to draw the scene where Captain America rides the rocket that lands in the ocean. Right. So all those moments that you would never get to do in a comic, you get to do in animation, because they recap that stuff every time they do a show.
Right. That's so cool.
Nice.
I love that.
All right. What was it's probably might be hard to pick, but what was your favorite comic to work on, and what's your favorite animated show to work on?
That's a good question. I think my favorite comic to work on probably was Wonder Man as a run. I mean, I love that character, and it was a dream. I mean, I got to have Terry Austin ink the covers, and my friend Dan inked the insides, and it was great. I mean, it was great. It was a great time to be doing comics. It was just a lot of fun, especially back in the day. Like you talked about the poster earlier. Like,
I love that.
Yeah, that was just something I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did like a movie poster? And that was the end of that conversation. Everyone thought like, yeah, that would be cool. And so we did a movie poster. I remember when we were doing the Crazy 8 issue, I said, well, I'd like to do a Sideways issue.
Yeah.
And Fabian said, sounds good. We'll just do a Sideways issue. Like back in the day, there were less meetings to go to, and there were less people to check off boxes for stuff. So you could just really sort of, I mean, express yourself and be an artist and kind of do what felt right for the character and the story without many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah. Right. I mean, to do a Sideways issue now, a friend of mine, Scott Collins, did a Sideways issue or a Sideways book for his creator-owned series, and everyone told him not to. Like it was is because it's hard on the shelves. It's hard on the system isn't set up for that kind of expression anymore. So yeah, I was very lucky to work on that. So Wonder Man would be my favorite comic, I think. And then I love doing Transformers. Transformers Prime I worked on for a couple of years. That was it's a really great cartoon, and the crew was really great, and I really thought we were doing something fun. And the I don't know if you guys ever watched Transformers. If you guys are if Transformers, I mean Prime, it was beautiful. So every time, and the music was amazing. Like everybody on that show was fantastic, and so when you would see it, it just felt like you, as a team, you had accomplished something special. I think it won a bunch of Emmys. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, Transformers, and plus I love Transformers. So I mean, it's funny to think of, like, mostly what I do is live a childhood's dream of like drawing robots and superheroes.
I love it. Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
So you said, well, you were talking about the Wonder Man art. You said you don't have a lot of that original art left, because I was gonna ask, do you ever do commissions, or do you have any art you sell, or because they didn't do a lot of, like, put out a lot of the art on merchandise or anything, like, except for that poster number 1. We really didn't get a Wonder Man poster for that series, did we?
No, I don't think so. I don't have a ton of that art left. I have the cover, the first cover.
Oh, cool. Iconic.
I mean, it was, and plus it's Terry Austin, who I've always loved, and it's my my wife said that the cover actually is my childhood up on my wall. It's like, oh, this is all your childhood dreams. Yeah,
I love it.
pretty much. It's funny to have that framed and just on your wall where you can look at it. Yeah, there wasn't a ton of the art that came out, so and I don't have much of it left. I have the scene where Wonder Man does Shakespeare, and then the people who are auditioning him are old friends of mine, and so I have that for sentimental reasons.
Cool.
And I have the splash page with the thumb, and then I think I have one of the crazy 8 pages left, because it's got the little old lady on it, and I just I just always liked that page. But I told Scott, we go to conventions a lot. It's a good excuse to hang out with your comic book friends, especially since we all are, troglodytes and live in our caves. So it's nice to go out and see other comic book guys at shows. But I think I've probably done more sketches of Wonder Man over the years than I ever did pages. So, and I draw him. I love drawing him. I get requests for him all the time. He's always fun to draw. So the only challenge is ever trying to draw him still, but make every pose different, make every sketch not the same. Because
Gotcha.
Which is a challenge, but it's an easy one because he's always doing something cool. Yeah, I don't. That's yeah. I've drawn, and I've signed. I love signing the books. I think there were 350,000 issues printed for that first issue.
Oh wow.
And I would bet I probably signed at least 150,000 of them.
Nice.
Yeah, I've signed so many of that first issue. It's great. I mean, it's always a joy. I'm always happy to see it.
I hope.
Are you?
I hope so, because once that show starts, I have a feeling you're going to be doing a lot more.
You're gonna see the other 200,000.
Yeah. I'm up for it. I love Wonder Man. I still love that character. I lost track of him after they killed him in Force Work, and I occasionally dip a toe in to see where he's at. Because I just think that every person who works on that character adds, because he's such a cipher, right? Like, because he reinvents himself every time he dies. I always thought that his powers get not just a little bit bigger, but a little bit different, right? Because it's the new incarnation. So every time that's one of the reasons I like all the costumes, because each one to me is a special version of him at a time, right? I think the Safari costume is my favorite, even over mine. It's just so different. He's just no one else has ever worn such a ridiculous jacket.
Yeah. And incidentally, they're just releasing that on Hasbro Marvel Legends.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I saw that.
That's
Too.
right.
Yeah, it looks really
definitely
good.
going to be on the
It
shelf.
does look
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get one of those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you doing any sequentials in comics? At the present time, yeah.
Yeah, I just finished a gig that I can't actually talk about over at Warner Brothers. It still hasn't been announced yet, but just doing some boards and cleaning up boards on that. And then I've been working on a project for a very long time, fitting it in with other stuff with James Robinson over at Image. So it's a creator-owned book that will eventually come out if I can ever get, if I'm going to get it done, obviously. But like, it
takes time.
It is, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to all of the details that I've created. The world I've created for myself is very ornate. So, but yeah, I'm doing that, and I bounce back to storyboards and commissions, and walk my dogs. That's pretty much it.
Cool.
Well, have you considered maybe doing an art book or something like that? Either via the direct market or Kickstarter or something like that, because I'm sure there's a few people that might like to see that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I have. So I do plug away at a couple other projects. I do have an art book. I take a sketch. I sell a sketchbook when I go to shows. It's like a little ash can. And then I have basically I'm putting together like a gigantic phone book size things of sketchbooks and sketches and character designs that are not, Marvel or DC, just private stuff. So that'll come out eventually, and I'm gonna put out the new volume of my fight scene book at some point.
Oh,
cool. That's right. I'd forgotten about your fight scene book. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be expanded. It'll cover more stuff. It'll be like I'm gonna re-release the first one, and then have a second volume. So that, and I'm probably gonna Kickstarter that at some point.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
You guys do a lot of Kickstarter? Do you guys support a lot of Kickstarter stuff?
Yeah,
Well,
looking at one of the guys there.
actually has a Kickstarter comic.
Yeah.
Down there.
Oh, cool. How does that go? How was that campaign? Do you?
It takes, well, because I'm not a name and you are, you already have a lot of advantages, but it's just getting the word out there, and for setting up the campaign is not that difficult. There's
Crossover division.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
But it's really a great place for indie comics. I think I read that the average for Kickstarter is like 30%, 40% of campaigns are successful, but in comics it's like 70%, just because the indie comics community is so supportive. But yeah, it's a great place to hang out. We can hit me up afterwards and we can chat some more about it. There's some great podcasts I can point you to, and a lot of good information out there.
I figured my plan was to get the majority of the work done, and then take that final Kickstarter step to get it out there and get it funded and whatnot. So
and there's some of them just blow up too. There's a Dave Stevens Blu-ray on Kickstarter right now.
Really?
Where it's kind of a tribute to him and his art.
Oh, excellent.
They interview Adam Hughes, and I think they're releasing a comic with it too, that I think Adam does, like a short story or something of the Rocketeer. It's pretty cool.
Well, because
Joe
I've got
Justice,
Joe Justice does some stuff. I was going to say
his Marvel Masterpieces book on his paintings, from the cards. He just released that on Kickstarter.
Really? Did he get Marvel to sign off on the rights?
It's on Kickstarter. So I know.
Of course he did. Let's just move on. Of course he did. I supported the Mike Grell, John Sable freelance Kickstarter a while ago. We had him on the Drink and Draw show, and then Liam Sharp did one with Jack Katz.
The incomparable Jack Katz. I think I've got that back here somewhere.
That's
somewhere on the
book.
bookshelf.
Yeah.
And then you see, we talked to him when he announced that JMD Mateus has like 4 books for like right now on Kickstarter. Like he's doing
actually
universe.
It ended last week, I think. But, he was doing a book with Sean McManus.
Excellent.
Tom Mandrake.
Tom Mandrake, and I forget the other artists, but there was like 3 other artists, I think. So Kickstarter's been a really great place for comics. It's pretty awesome.
It has. It seems like that it's that getting space in the Kickstarter world is easier than maybe getting space in a comic book shop shelf.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So you can, I think that's great. I think there's a lot of really great stuff. I mean, comics now, I mean, I don't even know, honestly. We talked about how I got in before. I mean, I don't think I would be able to break in now. The level of talent and quality of books that are coming out is daunting.
And I don't know if it's just like a money issue or what, but it just seems like a lot of the writers and artists, they make some of those poor people write like I don't know how many books a month and draw how many books a month. So
what at Marvel or DC?
Both, pretty much. It seems like
Yeah, it was competitive back in my day, but I think it was competitive in a different way. Like there was when I broke in, I was making $60 a page. And that was in 90, 91, something like that. Not really enough to survive on. Like, luckily I was in my early 20s and didn't eat much. So it was fine. And then like the royalties were okay. They weren't great. They weren't image royalties, but they were still pretty good. So you can make an okay living. But the definition of an okay living back then was $36,000 a year. That was what I was like, oh, I can make this much a year. I will live comfortably. Like I will be able to afford my rent and live and whatnot. And because you did you never really expected to make a lot of money in comics.
Yep.
Or have like the idea of having a TV show or a toy or any of that stuff that wasn't even a dream. That just didn't happen. It wasn't until I think Mike Mignola broke out with Hellboy that pipeline became a bit of a reality. But for guys like me and Scott who broke in the 90s, it was you just did comics because you loved comics. And the idea of drawing comics for a living was this ridiculous dream that we had just happened to make come true. So I think that now that the idea of comics and storytelling as a viable, career has become really kind of mainstream. A lot of people think that they can do it and can. And so I think the competition that has just become fierce, and it's much more international now, right? So I think that that your competition from all over the world just makes it a really tough. I think it's a tough market to break into to get attention, since everyone's the level of quality is so high all around that it's hard to be so good that stands out.
Well, and I think you kind of hit on it too, is that the monthly grind for an artist is just punishing. I mean, that's so much physical work. A writer can do 3-4 books a month because they're typing out a script and going on and doing another one or something. But art is such a physical thing that you're drawing every line. You're hunched over. There's no copy paste for you. Okay.
It's like you're chained to your desk.
Yeah. It is definitely can be tough on the body. Like I know that a lot of guys my age suffer from, like a bad back or a messed up shoulder or whatever sedentary lifestyle gives. One of the reasons that I am not that fast is that I still try and take time out to go on hikes, to walk the dog. At one point I realized that if I was to dedicate all my time and be as good of an artist as I could possibly be, that I would be unhappy. That even though I was I would be a better artist than I am, I settled for like, I'll be okay, but I will also go outside and take trips and get away from the table and enjoy. Because one of the things I like most about being an artist is the lifestyle of being an artist. Like I can have a glass of wine whenever I want, or I can sleep in late or get up early, or I really like that aspect of it. And so I will try and get away from my desk as much as possible so that I can enjoy that being the artist. So if at one point I realized like, I don't want to sit at the desk all day. Like what difference does it make what you're doing if you're at the desk? Like you want to enjoy what you're doing at the desk, but if you're there 24/7, you're still just sitting at a desk.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember someone asked me about animation because most of animation is done now. I do it on the Cintiq. I do it in the computer. So I basically am
Oh.
sitting at my computer all day. And someone asked, like, so isn't that fun? Isn't that great? I'm like, it is indistinguishable from someone sitting at a desk and doing data entry. From the outside, it looks exactly the same. So, or coding or anything else that you do at a desk. The only difference is that I get to draw really cool stuff while I'm sitting at my desk, but it still looks the same.
Well, do you have a preference over like the Cintiq or traditional?
I'm a dinosaur. I like paper. I mean, I still the convenience of working on a Cintiq is amazing. Like Control Z is a fantastic invention, and so especially if you're doing boards, it really makes a lot of sense because you're doing a ton of little drawings. And when you work in storyboards, you use a program called Toon Boom, a Storybook Pro, which animates. I mean, it makes an animatic for you, so you get to play it. So that requires a lot of like little tiny changes. But when I draw my comics, I still like to draw on paper, even though it's not efficient. I still like. I still like drawing on paper.
Well, it's I mean, it's for me, even reading, I don't like to necessarily read on a computer screen. I like to read a book or read a comic. There's that tactile sense to it, that
Absolutely
part of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Do you guys still read a lot of comics? You guys seem to read more comics than I do. I mean, it seems like you're.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm
Plenty.
reading every week.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That's great. That's really, really great. Do you guys have a lot of so? You guys are much more of well versed and expert in what's happening in comics. What do you think they're going to do with Wonder Man?
That's a good question.
Right. I mean,
no, actually, there's an easy answer to that, Jeff. The comics might lean heavily on however the TV show goes. You might see a Wonder Man that's all of a sudden, more comedic and whatever they do, producing the TV show, you might see that bleed into the comics. But I don't know. That's a little bit of a flippant kind of answer. I don't know. What do you reckon, Justin? Or...
I think it will depend on how the show does. I think if they relaunch a Wonder Man show, it will be right around the same time that series rather, that it will be right around the same time that the show is slated to come out to revive some interest in the character. And that'll depend on the writer and the creative team, of course. But I do think that they're going to give it a more comedic slant with the next interpretation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, having Kingsley on for sure, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I worry that, there for a while it seemed like the Marvel Cinematic Universe was influencing the comics, and the comics were trying to be more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I feel like that's putting the cart before the horse because MCU is its own thing. The comics, where they get their inspiration, is its own thing. And, we've always got the comics, so I get that, but I don't know. I like them being separate. I hope that it does spark interest in the comics, and I would love to have a nice big Wonder Man omnibus on my bookshelf.
Me too.
But
me too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I think. Yeah, it's not going to happen. But there are enough of the issues that have been reprinted in other things, like the Galactic Storm. There's a couple issues in that, and occasionally one shows up in an Avengers collection somewhere. I do really, you guys. I mean, I don't want to make comparisons without knowing anything about the show. But do you guys ever watch? Have you seen Barry on HBO?
No.
I think I may have seen an episode. I'm not sure.
It's a really great show. It's very funny, but it's also very serious. And I don't know if Wonder Man's going to take any cues from that, but it's a guy who is a vet and a soldier dealing with stuff, who is learning how to act in LA. So it has, and I don't know if you guys have ever lived in Los Angeles. I lived there for a long time. There's a lot of ridiculous situations when it comes to the craft and acting. And as some friends have said, the business we call show. So I think that there's probably going to be a ton of comic opportunities for this show. I would love to see them do another version of a new issue of Wonder Man where they take it from the show. and they give him another life. I know that he occasionally shows up as a team member and stuff, but I don't know if he's had his own book again since mine. So it would be nice to see.
I mean,
him.
that maybe like a quick mini series or one shot somewhere,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, not so. I was thinking not so much the show, but like in Marvel Comics right now, they're doing a lot of like mini series, like based on the '90s stuff. Like Peter David's been doing a bunch of Hulk stuff.
Cool.
JMD Mateus has been doing some Spider-Man stuff. I mean, so they've been going with writers with like new artists. I would love to see them do something based on the '90s Wonder Man stuff. Have you draw it so it looks exactly like the '90s.
That would
Fabian.
be fun.
Have Fabian write it.
Yes, have Fabian.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be a dream. Yes.
I mean, that would be getting the bands back together with Fabian would be really fun. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I still love that character. I mean, I know that you're supposed to outgrow childish things, but I just never really did, and I just love that character. He's so interesting to me to read and to work on. I think that one of the reasons I liked Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern too. He's just it's easier for me to draw something if I understand them. If I know who they are as people, then I can
if
take
you can
that.
relate to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it makes it easier for me to draw the more extreme situations. Like figuring out what Kyle was going to create with his ring was always very easy. Right. I'm like, oh, well, I would make this if I were in the situation. Well, if I can make anything super cool, of course I would make a dinosaur, right? Like, or I would make a robot, or I would do whatever the thing was. Like, it always seemed very obvious. But whenever I draw Hal Jordan, it doesn't. It doesn't make I don't know how his head works. I think that comes out. So yeah, I would love to do another Wonder Man and explore that character again.
So was Kyle Rayner like maybe one of the easiest characters to get get into their headspace because he is an artist, you're an artist, so you're like, oh well.
Yeah, I used I often when I was drawing him used my apartment as reference. So that's my desk, that's my kitchen. Like the apple does not fall too far from the tree when it comes to Kyle Rayner. Yeah.
Well, are there any bucket list characters or concepts that you want to do, that are out there that you haven't had a chance to do yet?
I've been very lucky. I've been able to do. I've been able to play with most of the toys in the Marvel and DC universe. I would still like to do. I don't know. I still like to do more work for both companies. I think those characters are fun, right? I would like to, and I've been doing creator-owned stuff. And I like that. I think there's a couple things I really lament not being able to do Magnus Robot Fighter. Like that was that I did a bunch of designs and I was creating an entire science fiction world and drawing a guy just cutting up robots with his hand. I got to do a couple of covers and something about that I always loved. I always loved that old that series. So that would be fun.
Nice.
I wouldn't mind doing Conan someday. I'm a huge Conan fan. But I think mostly it's the genres. Like the thing I'm doing with James is a fantasy book. There's dragons and centaurs and swords and sorcery and that stuff. And then when that's run its course, hopefully in 10 years, if we can do 100 issues, that'd be fantastic. But then some science fiction stuff, like just playing with the different genres.
Cool.
Nice.
I was going to ask you too. I read that you had worked with Ron Mars on I think it was a fantasy story called the Dragon Prince. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did that ever? Did anything ever come of that, or was that just?
So the Dragon Prince was a concept I came up with when I was working at CrossGen, and so I asked Ron if he would help me make it real and write it, and so I did that. I started working on that, and then Ron wrote the script, and we worked on the concept, and Ron took it and made it real. And then I can't remember the guy who drew it. Oh, he was so good too. But then that's right around the time that I jumped over to animation, and I wasn't able to finish the book. So someone else penciled it, and I think it did okay as a series, but I don't think it went anywhere after that. So. but yeah, that was a fun little book. That was I did the designs for it, and I did the covers, but then we also got other people to do a bunch of covers. Well, Ron got other people to do a bunch of covers. I think it came out through I can't remember the name of the company either. It wasn't Dark Horse. It was Top Cow.
Oh,
Top Cow. Okay.
All right.
Top Cow. Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
Mhm.
All right. I figure we're going to wrap this up here soon. So, gentlemen, any questions? Any final questions you want to ask Jeff?
So you guys are still reading comics. Like, what are you guys reading now? Like, what inspires? Like, what do you guys get excited about in modern comics?
I mean, I'm still like a big Marvel and DC fan. I read a bunch of that. I know Todd McFarlane. I mean, there's basically like four Spawn books out there, a month. He's really revving that back up. I like a lot of the classics, like Spider-Man. Like, I remember when you did a couple Spider-Man fill-ins in the '90s. Also,
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, you know what? I would draw Spider-Man again. Like, because I only got to do a couple issues. So if I could do a run on Spider-Man, that would be really, really. I mean, that would just be.
I'd imagine he'd be
love
just so
character.
fun to draw.
Yeah, he's great. He's. I do a ton of commissions. I'm very lucky to be a bit of a fan favorite when it comes to that. And what I do, a lot of Wonder Man, which is always fun, and then I do a lot of Spider-Mans. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think people just like Spider-Man.
So is it? I mean, do you just do that at conventions, or is there a website where like we can go to like?
Oh yeah, people just contact me on Facebook or Twitter, or sometimes I'm not really on Instagram, though I probably will be more now since
Twitter. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dumpster fire.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no official process.
Yeah,
You just got to reach out and be like, "Hey, what would be the
pretty much.
price for
If I
this?"
go when I was going to like 5 or 6 shows a year before COVID, and then stopped. And so I love shows. I love going to shows. I love hanging out with comic book people, and I love comics. I mean, I always have, and I'm sure I always will. It's, even though they are not the best financial move in the world, I still I'll do boards. I'll turn down board work so I can work on comic book stuff. So it's just, there's something so satisfying. I mean, I love watching a show that you've worked on. That's a good feeling, but there's nothing better than like holding the comic that you made and reading comics and talking to people about it. Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Nice. Yeah.
Love it.
So you asked about current comics. For me, I'm pretty much kind of all in on Kickstarter stuff. That's where I get most of the books that I'm reading today. Although I'm a classic Green Lantern fan, so I still buy my.
I can tell from the shirt. I have that shirt.
Yeah. And my. There we go. My.
Oh yeah,
Solar
nice.
battery.
I see it. There you go. Right on.
Number one, Hal Jordan fanboy.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the Kickstarter space, there's just so much freedom for people to do pretty much whatever they want. I mean, I get to do a book of my own, and I'm so lucky to be able to, hold it in my hand and say, look what we made. This is awesome. But Marvel and DC, I love so many of those characters, but I don't feel like I know a lot of them anymore because, maybe 10 years ago I stopped reading because maybe I didn't like the writer or it didn't work with me or whatever. So I just stopped, and I feel kind of lost, I think, with a lot of those characters these days. But I also think that monthly comics has to kind of change because it is so punishing. I mean, it's built on the back of artists, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally built on the back of artists. And in traditional publishing, there are book advances and there are ways to make it so that, artists are not, having to work for much, much less than they're actually worth. And I don't want to see Marvel and DC fall. I just hope that things get better for the creatives, in the future.
Agreed. Well, I mean, one of my bugaboos and little pet things has always been trying. One of the reasons I've bounced around to other companies is like you're always trying to figure out a way to change your situation, to get a better contract, to get to advance the rights of artists, to get them a little bit more credit, or get them a little bit, vacations, days off or whatever. And I do think that drawing a monthly comic book used to be a lot easier, because if you look back at the stuff where monthly comics were more common, is we cut a lot of corners. Like there are a lot of panels without backgrounds. There are a lot of really extreme close-ups, right? There were a lot of tricks to the trade to meet a deadline. A lot of silhouettes. Like when in doubt, black it out. That was definitely one of the things you did as you used to run. I mean, we used to draw right up until 4:49, and then you would run to the FedEx to put your pages in, right? So I mean, that's just not something anyone has to deal with anymore. But I think that, so my pencils were, I'll see if I can't find. I'll send you guys some of the samples that were my pencils, and then Dan's inks. Like your inker used to do a ton of work, right? Like it was the penciler's job to figure out what was going on and to draw it and to choose the shots, and then you handed it to your inker, and they added light and texture and pattern, and they really finished the drawing. And I just don't know if that. So the assembly line aspect of it, I think, made it possible, but it also made it cool. It made it fast. Like you could develop a relationship with the team. Like I still think of John Byrne and Terry Austin on the X-Men, right? Like that's. I just don't know if business wise they really support that anymore, and if the process really supports it anymore. Because I know that as a penciler, you have to do a lot tighter, right? That idea of a team, that's just not a thing anymore, which makes me sad. So I think that the relationship you used to build with the characters was often based on the relationship you had with the creators, and that doesn't seem to be a process anymore. Like it seems like you might get a writer on for a long time, but you never have an artist do a long run. That just doesn't. I mean, the only guy I know who can even do a monthly book. Guys like John Romita Jr. and Scott Collins and Ron Garney. Yeah. And I know that Dan Panosian can actually do one, but he's so damn good that he can actually pencil and ink and probably color a monthly book, right?
Wow.
So, but it's a very small amount of guys.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so many books that are coming out, these days. You're right. There's, maybe a writer's going to stick around for a year, but you're going to have 3 artists maybe during that year, and that, it's not like Lee and Kirby on the Fantastic Four, or even the big long runs of Claremont and Byrne, on Uncanny X-Men, or
Mark Grunwald.
On Cap,
yeah.
I think that. Go ahead.
I was just going to recommend over at DC, Cliff Chang just did a 4-issue. It's one of the Black Label, one of the bigger book.
He's amazing,
larger size. Oh yeah, Lonely City. Catwoman, Lonely City. He did all 4 issues. He wrote it. He did all the art. Basically, he did everything but edit it.
Wow, awesome.
Probably.
Wow.
He probably pulled the switch at the printer too, I would guess.
Yeah, his stuff is fantastic. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a good story. Like I said, he did every line of art himself. He colored it, did everything.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just an insane amount of work.
It's like the last issue was a couple months late, but you understand why.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can always see it on the page, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, one thing I do like about modern comics. So I love when there's lettering on the page. I love old school hand lettering on a page. That to me says comics. Yeah. But as a penciler, there's nothing more frustrating than spending 3 hours drawing a background and then having a word balloon put on top of it. It used to happen a lot.
I could just imagine those poor guys working with Chris Claremont.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
I did. I did Sovereign 7 annual.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And a lot of backgrounds got covered up.
Well, lettering.
There were many like, I could have gone to the beach.
Well, and lettering has changed so much just in the last 10 to 15 years because it's all digital now. Like with Illustrator, so that
And the
uh,
coloring too.
yeah, the letterers are doing some really cool stuff. With different kind of word balloons. Different captions. Doing things with different captions, different fonts. It's really kind of interesting. And I don't feel like letterers get enough respect because they control that flow, of the way we read it. And, they're
Absolutely.
always kind of an afterthought at the end, but
Yeah.
uh,
You talked
it's,
about earlier. It just occurred to me that when I do actually have a dream, right? I left like a bucket thing, and it's to be lettered by John Workman. Like to
Oh
have,
yes,
wow.
yeah, that's to draw a book, have it lettered on the page by John
by
Workman,
John Workman.
Yeah.
and then either ink
He's
it
so
myself or have Terry Austin ink it and just keep every
Mm.
one of those pages.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
it.
that's definitely on the list. I just don't know if he does he do hand lettering anymore. I think he letters the Simonson book, right?
I think he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. And I think Simonson is still, I think that's still traditional.
Yeah, no, I think he letters it on
Yeah.
the page. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's,
love John Workman.
That would be awesome.
yeah, that's the dream. That's the one. It's in the tank.
Well,
Nice.
you've spoken it, so now it's you've
Right. So
spoken
now
it
I
in
have to
reality.
make it happen. Yeah.
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 I can see it right now. Actually, that great part is one of my favorite parts. Actually, in the whole Wonder Man series, it was in issue number 7 when Simon and Captain Atlas are having that fight, and he keeps swapping places with Rick Jones, and then there's that wonderful 2-page splash panel.
Oh,
where
that
he
they
knocks
should
down
get
Captain
that.
Atlas.
Oh.
I can totally see like a John Workman like thoom,
Yeah.
like in the background
Yeah.
of that. Like,
I mean, I think I might have even roughed that in, thinking of like, this is my Thor moment.
yes, I love
Yeah.
that so much.
Yeah, that was good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I would want a poster of.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna cut this off. Jeff, thank you for joining us again. If you ever have
Thank
any
you, Jeff.
announcements, if you have Kickstarter stuff, or an animated show, I mean, you're welcome to come back on. If you just want
Awesome.
to say, "Hey, Phil, can you mention this?" I mean,
Mm.
you're a friend of the
Yeah,
show
thanks so
now.
much,
I
Jeff,
mean, well, yes, we
yeah.
can.
Excellent. Yeah,
You're
thanks
welcome
guys,
back.
and thanks for having me on, and thanks for that really fantastic review you did of the other Wonder Man. It was really wonderful to see. I know that I love that character, and I love that time in that book, and it's always really emotional, and it's always uplifting to see that other people have a fondness for it too. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, love it.
And hopefully one of these days we can get you a really awesome collected edition. I hope.
Mm.
Keeping my
Yeah,
fingers
well,
crossed.
Yes.
yeah.
I
I'm
understand.
so sorry I was late, guys, but this has been really a great conversation. It's been a good time.
Is there anything you want to promote before you go? Again,
No,
or
I will take you guys up on the offer when I get close to being done with my book. I'll hit you guys up, and
Okay.
and
Yeah,
we can.
I mean,
I'll
you got
show-
my
I'll show
you got my email, so yeah, just email me. Yeah, we'll get you in here. And one request: can you give me a drop that says, hi, this is Jeff Johnson, and you are listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast, and anything you want to fill in the middle there, any
All right.
thing.
Of course. Hi, this is Jeff Johnson. You are listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast. Thank you very much for having me on. You guys do a really amazing job, and it's impressive that you keep the love alive for comics.
Thank you.
Wow,
Thanks.
thank you.
Lovely. What a drop, Phil.
I know.
Yeah. That's a good one.
All right. So, all right. Thank you, sir. Again.
All right, guys.
Yeah, for your
It was
time.
really great.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Yeah. Bye.
All right.
All right.
All right. I know Ray's
Awesome
Ray
guy.
needs to
Yeah,
go. I
sorry.
have no idea what
Yeah.
time of day it is. All right.
Sorry.
All right. Before you go, Ray, do you want to promote your shows?
Yeah, I don't know whether to say Ray Pod now because of Twitter, but just anyone check out, look me up on Ray Pod, REY Pod, on Facebook and Twitter, and a slew of shows: Into the Night, the No Night podcast, To Know Her Is to Fear Her, Spider Woman podcast, Justin Predator and Bray Yocha podcast,
Yocha.
and wrapping up on Last Sons of Krypton, a Superman podcast. So by the time you hear this, check out episode 100 there.
Nice.
Very nice. Nice.
I didn't know if you had to drop out now or you're hanging.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay.
No, you're welcome to stay. I know you. You're like, I gotta go soon. Damn it.
All right.
Nice to see you, Ray.
I'll catch you. See you, Will. See you, Justin.
See you, Ray.
See you, Phil. No worries. Catch up.
Catch Predator and P-Ray.
Predator and P-Ray.
All right, Justin, go ahead.
Well, besides Predator and P-Ray, I also co-host Gamma Charge, the strongest podcast there is, where Russell and I talk about everything Hulk and She-Hulk related. And also our newest show is Stakes and Staples, a comic book vampire podcast, where we talk about vampire comics and vampire films in every episode.
And also now the last week of every month, he guest hosts. He takes Lil's place to guest host once a month on Ray's favorite show, We Are the Night, the Batman podcast.
The Batman podcast. And coming in January, Phil and I will be co-hosting Marvel Tales here on the Capes and Lunatics Network, which I'm super excited about.
Again, something different every week from Marvel.
That's right.
We got Thunderbolts on it. We're gonna have Thunderbolts on there. I don't think we do anything twice in that first year. I mean, we already got the first year playing well, because I was like, oh, let's do this, and then Justin's like, yeah, that's cool, let's do this, and I'm like, oh.
I think within 2 or 3 days we had filled up the whole year's schedule.
Oh yeah. When you do something different every week, it's just like, oh man.
Yeah, there's so much to choose from. It's great.
All right, and Mr. Allred, who does some podcasting, some Kickstarters, as we said. Tell him, Will, preach.
You can find me at Walred at Gmail and Facebook and Twitter, which,
for now,
monster fire that it is for now. You can also find my comics, Crossover Division. You can go to crossoverdivision.com. Issue 4 should be wrapping up soon and should be being sent out next month. So that'll be great. Woohoo! Awesome. And if you want, you can check out Diary of Night at diaryofnight.com, which is a vampire comic, Justin. So,
we
have
to feature that one on the show.
I read the Diary of Night. It's good. Yeah, you guys need to have him on. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
I also I host another podcast called Explain Yourself with Kevin Joseph, where we bring on Kickstarter comic creators and have them talk about their live projects, which is a lot of fun. And obviously you have great taste because you're listening to this show, so that means you love Quasar. So if you want to find out more about Quasar, check out the Quantum Zone at quantumzone.org.
Oh yeah,
I blew that. Hey boys, you look at the party. I love the party.
That's still not the best drop. The best drop is from the Star Blast drop, which is just nuts.
Oh yeah.
What's the Star Blast one? I don't think I've heard that one.
They aren't even attempting to enter our orifices.
That was in a Marvel comic.
That was in a Marvel.
That was in a Fantastic Four comic by Mr. Tom.
That was a read through.
I hope it's going somewhere nice.
And Justin, you should know, Lilith and I have put the word out. The drops where everyone just says, "Oh, talking about meat is so easy for Lilith and stuff."
Yes.
Now I'm asking everyone to send me their drops. Talking about meat is so natural for Justin.
Good.
Lilith is like, yes.
I love that. That's fantastic.
So the call has been put out.
Yeah, send in your drops, folks.
Like talks about meat, likes it long.
Because Ray likes it hard, and Ray likes it long.
You can do that too.
There's so many options.
Oh man, it's night of plugs. All right, kids. Yes, send us your thoughts on the Jeff Johnson stuff. Again, not a lot of we don't have a ton of Capes and Lunatics episodes coming up for the rest of the year. Again, we're kind of cutting back on them just for like interviews like this or movie reviews. Charlie Esser's going to be doing Super Connectivity. God help you all. So to fill that gap. But yeah, send in your thoughts, especially if you're a creator. Again, you could just be someone on Kickstarter or Marvel, DC, Image, any of those companies. So yeah, email me CapesandLunatics@gmail.com or call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And like I said, follow all our social medias. I have the link to all of them because keep up with the know with new shows. We mentioned Marvel Tales. 2023, Lilith and I are going to be doing Salty and Petty, where we just talk about basically whatever the hell we want. So, I think first episode out of the gate, it's going to be like the same day Quantum Leap comes back, Will. So I think we're first episode, we're going to talk some Quantum Leap.
Okay. I've been enjoying the heck out of that show.
Yes.
That is fun.
The new one's good, but I've been doing the rewatch of the old one. And like Lil said, I don't think anything beats Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell's chemistry.
It was good.
I blew your mind on
that too.
On Sector 2814, didn't I? When I told you that Quantum Leap is in the same universe as Magnum PI, Simon & Simon, and Murder, She Wrote.
Yes. Because they were going to do a crossover with what? With that.
So Murder, She Wrote and Simon & Simon actually did crossover with Magnum PI. Right?
Yes.
There was a two episode crossover between them. Well, according to what I've been reading about the original Quantum Leap, before it got canceled, they were actually working on, because Donald P. Belisario created, both.
Oh,
yeah, Sam was going to jump into Magnum, so you would have TC.
Oh my word!
But in the very first episode, he mentions that his sister married Jim Bonnick, who is a character in Magnum. So they take place in the same universe. So there you go, mind blown.
Now I can't stop thinking about him jumping into Jessica Fletcher.
Exactly.
That's what I said. Hey man, he jumped into Dr. Ruth once. Anything's possible.
Oh my God.
All right. This has been going on long enough. All right, so just find all our links, the merchandise, the Patreon, because once again we're all paying for this. All right,
Join me in the Patreon elite.
Yes, Justin, there's one of our patrons right there.
That's right.
Yeah, like we said, we need some more women in our Patreon. It's a complete sausage fest over there. So
yeah.
All right, so yeah, find everything at Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. And remember, kids, beginning of December, it's Lilith Hellfire's birthday, so
that's right.
Just send cash. All right, and again, thank you, gentlemen, for stepping in and filling in for Charlie and those big shoes of Lilith Hellfire. The big shoes of that little woman, Lilith Hellfire.
That was great fun.
All right, everyone. Yes. Hope you enjoyed your supersized episode of for this week of Capes and Lunatics. Again, the next episode, if nothing else, will be in December, where these gentlemen are invited. I invited the whole team. We're going to cover Home Alone, the original Home Alone,
the classic.
It's the Chris. It's going to be their holiday episode. So
nice.
Joe Pesci's going to get his.
30 years later.
That's right. All right, for another week, we have been your Capes, Campos, and Lunatics. And thank you, Jeff Johnson. Great conversation.
Great interview. Yeah. Great conversation.
If he wants to promote, we will have him back.
Love to talk to him again.
It was quite wonderful. Good night.